Welcome to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. The podcast that will connect you to resources regionally and nationwide to engage them in open, honest discussions so that we can inspire the growth that you need to chase the experience you want. So strap yourself in because here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Chasing Your Experience podcast. I'm your host, Sean Smith, and it is that time of year. It is the end of deer season in Ohio. So this episode, we're going to be going over some of the recap of the season, and ODNR, the Division of Wildlife, has their most recent stats out. So we'll be covering those in this episode. And little spoiler alert, there is a new king on top of the mountain of implements used in the state of Ohio to harvest deer. Stay tuned for that one. But before we get too far in this, let's get Sam on the air with us. He's here to join us to get us this recap. Sam, how are you, sir?
I am well. Dreary, rainy day out here in Western Colorado, but other than that, a good day for a podcast.
It is, right? Those are the best days to do it because, you can't go. I mean, you can. I'm sure there's some people like shot when it's raining, but I mean,
man, with this high desert mud, I don't want to go trudging around in it. I guess I'll put together a new shot back later, get in the crawl space, clean the crawl space out a little bit.
There you go. That sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Ah, man. Yeah, I remember the mud out there. It's like, it just sticks to you. It doesn't go anywhere. It just stays with you. It just piles up.
Yeah, and when it gets on the underside of your vehicles, it's even worse because it dries and it feels like concrete.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, man, we got a good episode, or at least we got an episode to cover over the Ohio whitetail season for myself and just kind of go over some of the stats and stuff from the state. I shared that link and stuff with you. I don't think there's any big surprises about any of the information that we're going to get out there, other than, we know that Washington County and a few of them are going to be lower in deer numbers and stuff. I mean, I think we expected that to happen. But the top 10 looks to be about the same as it's been for a while, the top 10 counties, and we'll cover all that stuff. And also just kind of give a recap on how my season in Ohio here went. So I think it should be a good one. What's going on with you? Anything?
Just still waiting on snow. I think we're gonna go snowshoe in the high country this weekend with the rain down here. They're getting snow up there, so it should be a good weekend for that.
Yeah.
We get out and get some exercise out of the mud. Outside of that, not too awful much. Just working.
Gotcha.
Planning on getting a new bow sighted in today, but it's gonna be a mud hole down at the archery range too. So.
Well, you know what's nice now? You have all that acreage. You can just go out and do it at your own place. Get yourself a couple good targets and do it at your own house.
That is going to be the build-up, hopefully, soon. As soon as we're done. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, even you got that backhoe, too. You can build your own backstop and stuff now, too. Man.
I am definitely working on that, building it back up. There's already a little mound there, kind of makeshift gun range. I don't care too much for how it's set up, but I'm just working on bringing the elevation down so there's more elevation behind it for catching flying projectiles.
Right. Well, dude, I can't wait to see what you can come up with out there. And you got your own little place now, man. Now you're going to be in my shoes. We're going to be going out to 100+ yards shooting your bow because you got this. Oh, you're going to be. Yeah, you are. You're going to get to that point like 60 is getting kind of easy. Let's push it out. Let's see what I can do. And you're going to.
No, I'm not one of the sliding whatever sight guys. Adjust it to yardage. I like my stationary fixed sight, 20 to 60 yards, and I'm happy with that.
I might have to influence you a little bit.
If you buy me the sight, I'll do it.
Anyways. So, well, good. Yeah, well, at least hopefully soon you'll have that up and running where you don't have to worry about traveling somewhere to shoot. That's what's been nice here where I live is, I don't have to travel to shoot, and I just go out my back door and honest, really, I could just step outside my back door. Now it's 100 and some yards from my back door to where my targets are, with a backstop. But like I said, I'm shooting at a distance anyway. So, I mean, I literally could just jump out my back door and shoot.
Yeah. So does the deck on your bedroom give you enough elevation to shoot over the hangar down that way too?
Well, so the deck ain't here no more. We end up taking
Oh,
out. Um, we're going to be replacing it probably this year, but
okay.
before winter, I'm glad we did, because we got a good bit of snow this year. I don't think that was going to survive another winter of like a good snowpack on it. It probably would have fell. Um, so it was on its last leg. It really needed work to be done to it, and it's just one of those things that we just neglected and didn't do, and so we just tore it down. So it's sitting in the burn pit right now, and getting ready, ready to be burned at some point. Trying to get one of my oldest. Well, they both boys know this family. Trying to get them to come over and pick it up because they like to have bonfires out. They live outside between Tappan and Clendenning, and they have big bonfires out there, and we're trying to get them to come get the get the wood so they can just burn it. But I'll probably end up burning it once springtime gets around here and some burn bans get lifted.
Yeah. Right now, probably a good time with all the snow on the ground too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just try to get a good, nice, calm day because I don't want it to be too windy and start blowing crap everywhere.
Right.
That's probably not the content why people are here to listen to. So, how do we want to start this off? Well, we just start going off down through the. Let's just start on stats. Let's talk about those
Yeah.
for a little bit. What do you think about that?
That works for me. It looks like a pretty banner season. And you guys are looking like you're coming up into 250 years of Ohio being a state, I believe. If I'm reading that right.
Yeah, we've been at it for a while. We have been at it for a while. Uh, yeah. So we've had some record breaking years over the last couple years of our deer season, and this thing's taken forever to try to load up. Anyways, so another banner year for Ohio. I think we're about 232,000 deer were checked during the 25-26 season, and that encompasses all the seasons. Once I am able to pull the stats up, we'll start diving a little bit deeper into it. But what I remember is that Coshocton County has led the way again for total number of deer harvested. I think they're around 8,000 and some deer, I think, if I remember correctly.
Well, if
Um,
you want, I can rifle down the list for you. I've got it right in front of me.
yeah, yeah. Let's hear it. What is it?
So you are correct with Coshocton number one at 8,527,
Hmm.
coming in at a not so close second, just about 1,000 less deer, 7,623 for Tuscarawas County, 7,161 for Ashtabula.
Yeah, that one.
We get into Knox County with 6,700, Muskingum County with 6,283, Carroll County with 6,077, Licking County with 5,770, Holmes County with 5,717, Trumbull County 5,324, and Columbiana with 5,245. So as you go down the list, starting with Coshocton, there's a significant gap there between first and last place there.
Yeah, it's the about 3,000 deer difference between
Mm-hmm.
the two. That's interesting. Yeah, Coshocton's led the way for a couple years now. It's either between Tusk and Coshocton for the most part. Who's going to be the top one? I know earlier, it's usually was Tuscarawas that usually led the way, but Coshocton and Tuscarawas, if you're not from Ohio, they touch each other. They're they they border each other in the south east. Well, I guess we could say we're the northeast, but we're about the furthest part for south of the northeast part of Ohio. Is the best way I can describe it. We're not as heavy. So here's the thing that's funny is we're not as heavy ag. I mean, yes, there is agriculture around here, but we're not as heavy as ag as like some of the flatter counties out west of Columbus. I'm surprised none of them really show up a lot on these as being higher deer counts.
Well, with your allotment system in the zones, do you know what the tag allocation or the harvest allocation is in the western counties?
I'd have to go look. I had to go look at the bag limits because they go by county now.
Oh,
We used to do zones where like zone C it's many deer, but now it's by county, and then they broke it down like the highest. I think the highest counties allow you to shoot 4 deer, and those are your rural, so not rural, but metropolitan areas like Akron, Columbus, those areas. Franklin County, so Summit County, Cuyahoga County. I think there's a couple others that fall in that, or 4 deer counties. But generally, the highest number is 3, and then every now and again you get 2s or 1s. But I think most of the state, except for what was changed halfway through the season, were about 3 deer counties. And then there are some western counties over there that are part of the disease surveillance area for CWD, and so they have some extra controlled hunts that happen out there.
okay. So just a quick look. I looked at Logan County, which is kind of in between the Columbus area and the Dayton area, it appears, and they happen to be a 2 deer county.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if that's consistent across that western side.
Let's see here. So Clermont County, which I know is the western county, they had 2,759 deer checked in. Cuyahoga County, although there are 4, listen to this. Cuyahoga, even though there are 4 deer county, 822 deer.
I wonder if that's just because there's not a high density of hunters in that vicinity.
That and probably the inability to hunt there because of it being so urbanized.
Yeah, less
Frank,
public land, less access.
yeah, Franklin County, another 4 deer county, 709 deer.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. So let's find out. Let's see what Washington had. So Washington, yeah, this is what I expected. So Washington was one of the counties that were hit pretty hard with EHD. 783 deer were checked.
Which is probably good. I mean, they did switch. I mean, that's still good for what I thought it was going to be with switching everyone to one tag. I
Yeah.
figured maybe most people would just sit it out, even with, how brutal the EHD hit down that way this year.
So I don't know how to read this. Hold on. Okay. So there's a 3-year average. Let's do this. So as I'm reading this, it's showing me like what the numbers were for 25, 26. And then in parentheses, there's another number and it's a 3-year average. So from like 22 to 24 average. Okay. So Washington, like I said, for this year had 783 deer harvested or list checked. All right. Their 3-year average is 4,087. That's a significant decrease. What was one of the other ones? I think Athens was another one of the big counties. So
Yeah, I think Athens, Meigs,
Athens,
Scalia.
917 deer checked this year. Their 3-year average is 3,306. So they're another county that is significantly lower. Let's see here. So Guernsey County was down from their average by like just 500. Harrison County was up from their average by 600 deer, which I helped at least one of those. Let's see. Where's good old Tuscarawas County? Tuscarawas County, we were up 500 deer from our average. So we killed 7,623. Let me phrase that. We checked in 7,623 deer. We have a 3-year average of 7,141. Trying to see what else. Washington, Wood, Wyandotte, Williams. Jackson County held pretty. That's another one down that southern part of the count of the state. Yeah. Where's Meigs at? Meigs County, they still killed over 1,000 deer, but they were 2,000 deer below their average.
So right in that typical 3,000 range, it seems consistent.
Yeah.
I was a little curious about Hocking County, but I'm not getting the result that I want out of my search.
So Hocking County, 2,643 deer. They were 100 deer less than their three-year average.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if they were one of the ones that were hit with it, but it doesn't sound like they got lumped in with that allocation there.
I'm sure they probably had some, but it doesn't sound like it was as bad as like those 3 counties that have been mentioned. Mahoney actually had a lot of deer shot. 2,768. That's Youngstown area. And they're over their 3-year average of 2,340.
Nice.
There's a lot of counties that were higher. Now that might be, so again, I think there's a lot of things that can go into that. Obviously, there might have been some hunters that were displaced from the three major counties, Washington, Athens, and I guess Meigs. I was thinking there was another one that was in that mix, but I could be wrong. But they could have been displaced and moved to other locations. So that can account for some of it. But that's the thing; it's so hard because there's so many variables that kind of go into those statistics. It's kind of hard to say on what that actually was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I can't say for sure. Someone traveling from Washington County all the way up to Mahoning, opposed to going to Hocking or Vinton or somewhere like that didn't get hit. Uh,
Right.
you, you'd have thought maybe that would push some numbers up in those areas, but it seems like they were pretty relative to what they usually are.
Yep. All right. Let's see here. Let's see what else. What else do we have? So let's talk about deer that were checked. All right.
All
So
right.
we had 48% of our harvest that was checked were does, with 111,921 does that were checked in this year. Antlered bucks accounted for 42% of the harvest, with 96,000. So it was 95,998 antlered bucks were checked in. We had 9% of our harvest were button bucks, which was 21,257. And then bucks with shed antlers or antlers shorter than 3 inches was 1% of the harvest at 2,966. So I'd be kind of curious to know, because I know the state's been asking us to shoot more does. I'm obviously, if we added all those numbers up, we're still shooting more bucks than we are does.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, with that 21,000 button bucks, those are bucks. They're still bucks.
Yeah.
They didn't
Mhm.
get a chance to reach their potential. Now, I'm not cracking on it because
No,
they
no, no,
are
no,
delicious. So don't get me wrong.
no.
Uh, but yeah, I get the breakdown, but yeah, they're still bucks and have the potential when they survive. The thing that doesn't surprise me though is, the almost 112,000 doe taken. Obviously you get more doe tags, more opportunity at doe.
Mhm.
So,
They're cheap.
uh, I'm sorry.
They're cheaper for the most part. If you just get a deer
Yeah,
management permit, they're cheaper.
yeah, yeah. I forgot about that too.
And it
But
doesn't
yeah,
have to.
you get you get one buck, one either sex, or I guess one buck tag. You can shoot one antlered buck a year. So
Mhm. Yep, you're
yeah,
allowed
no.
one antler deer, and you're allowed 6 deer altogether. One, and only one of them can be antlered.
So yeah, it'll pump those doe numbers right on up there. But still, you're looking at significant number of bucks taken, and I'd be curious. Less than 3 inches. So yeah, you've got three buck categories here, and
Mhm.
button bucks and bucks with shed antlers are less than 3 inches get checked as antlerless deer, I believe.
Yes. Yep. So here's a metric though. So we checked in. Now, obviously there's going to numbers will be skewed because there might be some people who aren't checking in their deer. Like let's be real. We know it's happening. We try to reduce it. We try to reduce as much as possible, but let's be real. There are people who are doing that. There are people who aren't buying tags, who are technically poaching deer. We understand that, right? So just giving you the numbers that we can keep track of is what was done up to par. At least it's up to par as we can get it with checking in a deer, right? So the metric, though, I want to bring out is that we sold 424,241 deer permits in the state of Ohio across all hunting seasons. But we only harvested 232,000, I think was the number. Let me go up here and look. 32,142, which is our highest year so far that I'm shown is 2009 to 2010, where we harvested 2,000 or 260,000 deer. So We only so of the permits, and it's a little bit more than this. It might be about 60%. So we might have about a 60% success rate um, with permits that were purchased. So if you
Well,
they
and it's kind of nice, you buy your deer tag there and it's concurrent. It's valid across all boards of the season. You don't have to get your archery tag and then your firearms tag and then your muzzle loader tag. So that's a beneficial thing as well.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah, it's one of those things when we talked about that in the last episode though, with you and I, is that here, like you said, you can buy and you can hunt through all the seasons. You go to another, I'm sure there's some other whitetail states that do it too, like Colorado, where you have to buy. Oh, so here's an archery tag. Archery's done here, and then you get your firearms tag. So it's not you have to buy another tag to get into the firearm season. So I get it. So yeah, it does leave you open with some things to get involved or to kind of go through this. So
Yeah.
here's the big thing. And let's talk about, because these two heavyweights duke it out every year, right? Who's going to be the top implement every year, right? And it's from two different seasons. It's crossbows and straight wall cartridge is the two heavyweights that keep duking it out over, and they account for over 60% of the harvest between the two of them, right? Almost 70% of the harvest are done with one of these two implements. I actually think it's about 72%, if I'm thinking correctly. Which one do you think is number one this year?
Well, I have it in front of me, so it doesn't make a fun guess. But had you blindly sent me, man, I'm trying to think back to last year, going over it. If I wouldn't have seen the numbers, I probably still would have went with my answer of firearms. I know the season's not as long. I remember talking last year how it seems more guys are starting to get into archery, just because of longevity and opportunity out of season. And
Mhm.
but just coming from that time of me growing up, it's always been in my mind that firearms is key. And so that probably would have been my initial answer.
So you would be right this year. The straight walled cartridge was the number one implement of take, and it accounted for 34% of the harvest, which the number was 78,395 deer were checked in using a straight walled cartridge rifle. Number two was crossbow, which was 77,938 deer were checked in, and they accounted for 33% of the harvest. So about it's 67%. So
Yeah.
so that almost 70% of the deer that were harvested in Ohio was between those two implements. And the next one up was a vertical bow, and it's a significant difference. Like we're talking 30,000, 30, 40,000. In some instances, we could probably make an argument for 50,000 deer less, and that's vertical
Wow.
bow at 29,845, which accounted for 13% of the total harvest, which put us right about shotgun, which also was 13%. It was only 45 less deer shot with a shotgun than a vertical bow.
Wow. I'd like to, well, it's a little late now, but at some point maybe get back into historical stats before the straight wall cartridge came along. So obviously you boot that out and see what the shotgun numbers used to look like before the introduction of those newer methods of take were legalized.
Well, I would go on a limb and say that during that time frame, firearms was king. That was when most deer were harvested, was during that firearm season. Archery, I think, was still on its up and coming to become one of the number one implements of take, or the number one season, or at least number one. I can't really say the season because the archery season technically never goes out. Like there's no it starts at the end of September and ends at the 1st of February. And even during the gun seasons, you can go out with an archery equipment during the gun seasons if you wanted to. So you could still, those numbers can still show up there. Um, but I guarantee you, shotgun was probably number one.
Oh, for sure. It just makes you wonder how many were taken in a given year comparatively. Uh, but man, it's crazy. You give somebody a really effective tool that can reach out a little bit farther and be a little more consistent than going out there with the old pump gun or whatever. It's really cool to see, and I'm sure it gave some other people a little more opportunity that they may not have had otherwise, sitting in their tree stand or in their box blind, see that deer, 150, 200 yards, think, man, I don't, this slug's going to drop off too fast. And now they have the opportunity to reach out and touch that.
Right. And so muzzleloader is 15,602, which is 6% of the harvest. And then handgun was 562. So less than 1% of the harvest was somebody that went out with a handgun and did it. That'd be an interesting way of doing it.
For sure. I know one of our family friends, one of the bucks on his wall, he actually took with a handgun. And that's been quite some time ago, but that's still really cool. You don't see many people doing that.
So I want to see if they have a breakdown. Okay, here we go. So the breakdown by individual season. And so this is where it's going to get a little bit skewed. Okay.
Okay.
Because during the archery season, I told you that crossbows, let's see here. Well, maybe not. Hold on. Crossbows accounted for 77,000, 28, 20, so 30. Yeah. So we're above what this number is. So archery season accounted for 104,731 deer was archery season. Week long gun season, 85,448. The 2-day gun season, 135. The 2-day youth was 9,758. Oh, if we do quick math on that, 85 and 15 gives us what, 100,000?
101, 283 for the firearms season, and it does have the youth separated down here.
Yep, and then you add the 10,000, so that's 112. And then if you want to throw in a controlled firearms hunt, honestly, this is one of the first years in a while that firearms has been more than archery
in a while.
It's not much difference, but there is a difference where firearms were the more deer were taken during the firearm season here in Ohio. Now I've got a few theories behind that, and that's going to kind of tie us into how my season went here in Ohio. And before we get too far into that, I don't want to dive into that just quite yet. I want to kind of touch a little bit more on some of these stats, but I guess, is there anything that's kind of surprising you out of the stats though?
I don't want to say the youth number might be concerning, but I maybe would have thought there would have been, how long's that youth season? It's only 2 days.
Yeah, 2 days.
Okay, then never mind. Disregard what I just said. That youth number looks really good then. I keep thinking it's been a while since I've been a youth and haven't been in Ohio for some time, but yeah, almost 10,000 deer harvested on a 2-day weekend for kids. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's really good. And so here's my question. I wonder what metric they use to actually separate that out, because that does fall during archery season, before the actual firearm season starts. So I wonder if here's the only thing that I'm asking that is, I wonder if they took all the kills, because I know me personally, not this year, but last couple years ago, I shot a good buck during youth season with my bow. So does that number count towards those numbers, or are they just specifically taking out that metric of youth hunters that were used to firearm?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm wondering if on your check sheet or call-in check, if they're filtering, and I'm sure some of the kids are hunting with archery equipment, but
Awesome.
I was wondering if they were gonna separate out people who marked archery and then the people who marked firearm, and
Yeah.
presumably the ones marking firearm are hopefully youth.
Yeah. Well, that'd be honestly, with today's technology, I think that'd be an easy distinguish thing for them to be able to figure it out. Like, it's if they're checking it, then the metric is already there. They can just pull it, and go about it
Mhm.
that way if that's how they did it. And I'm just curious if that's was how they approached that, or if they just took
Yeah.
all the deer that were harvested during those 2 days.
Yeah. I'm sure some of your friends within the agency might be able to answer that.
I might have to ask them that question. Like, hey, when you guys get these numbers, how does that come out? Like, do you guys just, like we just talked about, is it like all deer harvested during that time frame, or do you guys actually pull the metric of youth and firearms that
Yeah.
to get those numbers?
Because we have the technology to create the algorithm, split everything up. But we
Mhm.
also know how government functions, and it's usually a decade behind.
No, no, no such thing as that. Yeah, I mean, those are honestly those are pretty solid numbers, though.
Yeah.
I mean, our harvest rate, our total number of deer harvested stayed about the same. Um, we were about that. We're down 6,000 from where we were last year, but we pretty much mirrored the 27. I mean, the 2007 2008 season because they give you like their top one, two, three, four, five. Let's see, one, two, six. About the top 7 seasons they give you on this breakdown. And like I said, 2009, 2010 was the number one season where we harvested 260,000 deer. Mm-mm-mm. No, those are interesting stats. I always like when they throw these things out because it's interesting to know. The one I wish that they had on here was how many non-resident licenses were sold.
Oh, they don't give us any of that.
No, they give us a breakdown of who the top states were. So Pennsylvania was number one, non-resident with 6,768 licenses sold. Michigan was number two at 4,426. North Carolina was number three with 2,999, followed by New York at 2,839, and then West Virginia 2,750. So, and once again, that's just the top. That's just like the top five. They didn't break down any more than that. So I'm kind of curious to know how many of those licenses were non-resident. The only
What
reason
what was the last one that you read? I'm sorry.
So the last state was West Virginia, 2,750.
Okay. For some reason, I'm getting some obscure numbers from
No.
the
So
Google verse.
good old Google. I mean, quick
Yeah.
math. So that's 11 and a half, 14, 17. So 20, so about 20,000 in just those 5 states of tags sold for non-residents. And, that's a rough guesstimate. Like I did some really rough rounding up and rounding down to get that number. Um, but I'm kind of curious to know. And the only reason I say it is because there is, like you've seen in Colorado and several other states, they're really pushing hard for non-residents to go to a draw. And that really came out really heavy here in Ohio this year because an EHD was one of those triggers that kind of triggered that conversation about making non-residents go to a draw here in Ohio.
Well, and you're also running into something I was talking to my buddy with. It was mostly about duck hunting on his end from where he grew up, but it made me think of what was going on with the whitetail hunting back there. And, you used to be able to go knock on Farmer Joe's door and say, "Hey, I see you got a pile of deer on your property. You mind if I come out and try and harvest a couple?" And it seemed more often than not you could get a nod, maybe give them a hand with some farm work or, some other things, but no, leases weren't really that big of a thing. And now we start to run into some of that out of state influence coming in and people offering piles of money to hunt
Mm.
a plot of land. And so I wonder, I'm sure that's a driving factor as well.
It is. There's a few things that kind of go into that. Um, I don't know. In the Division of Wildlife, every time I hear them talk about something like this, I don't know if they, I don't want to say they're downplaying it, but I don't think they see it as big a concern as what people make it out to be. I don't know, and I don't know if I agree with it. I don't know if I disagree. Like that's one of the things that I have to look into a little bit more.
For sure. But yeah, I could definitely, I noticed it before I moved that, a lot of these farmers, which, I don't blame them. You got property taxes to pay. I have family members with a pretty large farm and, we could go coyote hunt and fish the stock ponds and stuff. But when deer season rolled around, we were out and it, that was something they used to supplement for their property taxes.
Yeah, I get that. Here's oh, I might ruffle some feathers for this discussion I'm about to have, but I guess I was kind of holding it on to this. and we might lose people. So if you're still here and listening, make sure you like and subscribe and follow the show, and leave us a review. But before I get into making everyone mad and turning this off, the issue that I start to see, or that I'm starting to see, is that it's not necessarily, it's about when people try to isolate themselves from other hunters. And so they lease this land, they lease this stuff, and then they want exclusive rights to hunt it. And so, and they're only interested in one thing, and that's harvesting a big buck. Like, I get it. Everyone wants to harvest a big, I understand that, right? But the problem is that they isolate themselves to that. They don't allow anybody else to come in there to hunt, to actually would to harvest does or anything. And so they inadvertently create these deer sanctuaries, which then the state in turn is like, listen, we need to reduce our population rates. Like, they're too high. We need to do something about it. But you can't get people to access. Like, I can easily manage, the farms that I hunt to have access to, right? We can bring people in, we can do all these things, and we can do that. That's great, but that only affects that very pinpoint area. But then when you have this area that has, you know, and I always said this about the where my mom used to work, which is the Cambridge Developmental Center. There was deer everywhere on that property. You couldn't hunt them. Like, they were everywhere, right? So it was a sanctuary for them. So you're not doing anything to the population, not helping it, and you're not able to access those to help reduce the numbers like they want. And that's the same thing happens when these properties get leased out, where no one else can get access to them, and you're only interested in doing one thing. My next problem that I have with it is that there are some individuals who will lease this, totally take out this giant swath of land that they lease, and then never hunt it. So nothing happens there. Like, no one can access it. It's just left there. Um, so my problem with the state, and my problem with all that, is the reduction of access for people. That's the issue I have with it. And and I don't know if there's a good way to go about reducing it. I don't know if making all non-residents, even non-resident landowners, go to a draw to get deer tags. I don't know if that would even address or fix it. Because right now landowners can kind of get their, even if they're non-resident, can kind of get their tags. But if we make them all go to a draw,
Well, you kind of swing back into the now you've got a sanctuary. They don't draw their tag this year. That's another year of no pressure on that plot of land that the deer can use as a sanctuary.
yeah, but do they lose interest then because they can't draw a tag? So then they decide to get rid of that property because they
No,
can't.
I personally don't think so. Because we already have a lot of that whitetail mentality of let them go, let them grow. And if my property's acting as a sanctuary where they can feel safe, and now this is just opinion, this isn't fact. So,
Right.
but now they have this place that they can feel safe year in, year out. And I have the chance of maximizing antler growth potential. Like, I can still go in, I can still work on food plots, I can still keep the deer around that are coming around. And the farm next to me might be hunting. How many acres? We don't know. But you, they still only get that one buck tag, and so you still have a lot of growth potential in that said sanctuary. So I don't know that it would take anyone out of it.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, it's, I don't know. I don't know if there's any major, I don't know if there's any way to fix it. I really don't. Some
Well,
people,
and it's like the tag thing out west everywhere. We want to make everybody happy. We want to make everybody happy. We're not. We're not. It's not going to happen. You're going to pick. Oh, well, we changed this. Now the archery guys are pissed. Oh, we changed this. Now the in-state hunters are pissed. Oh, we changed this. Now the out-of-state hunters are pissed. So, you're going to get a bloody nose one way or another. Someone's going to want to take a swing at you no matter what decision you make.
yeah, yeah, unfortunately. So I don't know. I'm just glad I don't work for the Division of Wildlife and have to make those decisions.
Yeah.
Because they are under a lot of pressure. And if you get on, so, I mean, I don't know why I joined Facebook, because Facebook is such a cesspool of negativity, and that's their own doing. And I don't want to go down that route, but that's their own doing about how their algorithm works. It promotes that type of behavior. Um, and I want to take a moment to talk about something that has transformed my approach to hunting. That's mock scrapes. I was introduced to the Scrape Doctor system 2 years ago in Columbus, Ohio, and let me tell you, it changed my game. If you're looking to dive into mock scrapes or just need a fresh perspective, I highly recommend checking out scrapedoctor.com. Their insights have been invaluable, and it's been great to see how my skills have developed since that first meeting. What's more, our relationship has blossomed into a fantastic friendship. And to celebrate that, I want to share an exclusive deal with you. Use code CountryFried15 at scrapedoctor.com to save 15% on your purchase. Trust me, you won't regret it. Just when you go on there, like it's just the amount of heat that the Division of Wildlife takes. I'm like, have you even like talked to them to kind of get their perspective of this thing and how this works? And it's kind of ridiculous. Just
Yeah. To swing back to your earlier curiosity, so I did find the total number of out-of-state licenses sold
did
without
you?
just the top five. So what I'm getting is the none from when did they end this? So they quit tracking on December 21st, 2025. The total non-resident tags purchased for the 25-26 season was 34,594 licenses.
That's not that much.
No, not out of a total of 400, almost 411,000 there.
Yeah, that's not that much. So once again, I don't know. Now, if someone's listening to podcasts, like, well, they quit tracking in December. So how do you know there wasn't any more tags sold? I'm like, I doubt that there was more that high amount of tags that were sold after that, to be honest with you, because that's the primary part of the season's already done. Now you're getting
Yeah, and
into like,
even if they sold 10,000 more, still that's 10%.
yeah, 10% of the sales were non-resident. So once again, I don't, is it really that big of an issue? I don't know. I don't know. I think people think it is. And I think a lot of people that might be around like public land hunting areas might think it is because of what where these individuals have access to. Um, I don't know. Like I said, I'm just glad I don't work for the Division of Wildlife and have to make these decisions.
Well, and are we into a day and age where just recreational outrage is the norm? I mean, looking at Facebook, it seems to be
Yeah,
everybody's just looking for something to be mad about. Like, you just can't enjoy it anymore.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I always have an issue when we try to isolate ourselves and not try to do things to help promote the culture in general. You know, I hear people talking about wanting to put fences up to block off their neighbors, things like that. Like, really? I mean, really? I mean, I don't know. In my opinion, it's a sad state of affair when you get to that level of greed. I'll say it, of greed, because you are only worried about yourself at that point. So whatever. So
Well, I'm putting up fences to try and keep the grazing cattle out
no,
in the summer. So
I get that, but these guys,
no, I know.
these guys are legitimately trying to put fence, and it's not even a full fence around their property. They're just putting fences and barriers up to keep the deer from traveling over to their neighbors.
That's a new one.
Yeah, why would you do that? I mean, I don't know. So I obviously some people who might be involved in that, or some people might have a different opinion in that, but it's like you, it's not your deer. It's not my deer. It's not your deer. Like you might own the land or you might have access to the land, but that's not that farmer's deer. Like unless you go to an actual high fence to where they've purchased a deer and then you're paying $30,000 to shoot it, that's not your deer. That's everybody's deer. And
Or you get really lucky and the deer gets out from a storm that a tree fell on that high fence and wanders into public land. And you're the fortunate one to harvest a $20,000 deer for the cost of your tag.
that happens. And
Uh,
I think there's a guy not too far from here. I think a kid did that. Was successful in that. So that does happen. What sucks about those, you can't enter that in any of the books because it wasn't a natural born deer. So,
yeah, but still fun. Like,
oh yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, it's still a
I'm sure
lifetime.
that,
It's still a once in a lifetime deer.
yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, so let's shift gears here because we got through the numbers and I think we hit on one of the things where firearms seem to have overtaken archery. And so kind of shift gears and kind of walk us through Or at least we can kind of discuss like, kind of how like the Ohio season has gone for at least what I've noticed from my experience. Just to, as a quick kind of like, um, how do I say this? Just kind of a quick little spoiler. I ended up harvesting 4 deer this year. 3 from Tuscarawas County and 1 from Harrison County. Um, but this season was a little different, was a little odd compared to others. And I have a working theory as to why early archery season and some of the archery seasons wasn't as productive as what they've normally been in the past. And now I don't think it's the drought that we had kind of played into this, but I really seriously think it was the abnormal acorn crop that we had this year that really kind of changed what that part of the season looked like. You there?
Yeah, no, I'm here. Uh, yeah, if you got food at home, why would you go out?
Yeah, and I heard a lot of people complain like, "Oh, it's everybody with their corn piles. Corn piles are doing this." I'm like, I don't think it's the corn piles. I really seriously think because I don't have deer coming to my stuff right now. Like they're not coming to it because they don't have to. And I think that was a big problem for most people was that you couldn't walk in the woods and anywhere that I hunted without stepping on an acorn or a pile of acorns. So instead of the deer having to converge on like 1 or 2 hot acorn trees, they were everywhere. So you didn't see them in masses like you have in the past. That's why I think is the majority of what the issue was this year. That's my opinion.
So with the bounty of food, with the acorn and the corn and everything else, with the deer that you harvested, did you notice any difference in the fat content on the deer?
They were fat. they, they were, there was a lot of fat. Even the buck I shot during, gun season, he still was packing a lot of fat on him, which normally for a buck, because we're on the tail end of the rut, usually by that point they're pretty emaciated. Not I can't say like emaciated, but definitely have lost body weight by then.
Yeah.
He was still packing a good bit of fat on him.
Which is a good indicator, especially with, the winter you guys recently had roll in. And so you've got big, fat, healthy toes that are going to give birth to hopefully very healthy fawns this year.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the hope. But yeah, I don't. That was my experience of the early season because could not get a mature animal in front of me, and I had some like younger bucks, maybe a couple like button bucks, some like doe fawns that came within bow range. I didn't see anything of any maturity to get within bow range of me, and I honestly was getting scared, to be honest with you. I was afraid that some of the farms were hit with the HD because it was in the air. Like everyone was talking about it, and but every time I go to a farm and kind of walk around, like there was no evidence of it. There's no dead deer laying in what water sources were still there. Like there was no evidence of that. And you're left to ask, well, where did all the deer go? And now I understand, and one of the guys that I don't know, but one of the property owners, it's every year like the bucks disappear. I don't know where they're going, where they go. It's like, but it's every year. They do that every year. Like they're there for the summer, and then once the antlers start to harden and the velvet falls off, they don't want to be around each other, and they start scurrying off to their own little areas. But it would once again that acorn harvest or the acorn drop didn't help any of that because once again they didn't have to like come to a specific food source. It was just everywhere. Yeah, point on a map, the deer could walk there, and I guarantee you there's probably a pile of acorns there for them. Actually, I still think there are acorns that have rotted by now on the ground because there was just too many of them. They couldn't eat all of them.
Well, and hopefully that's a good sign for the deer population too, with CWD on everybody's mind and the discussion around that with corn piles and how CWD is transmitted so easily. Maybe this acorn crop helps spread the deer out and kind of keep them from lumping up to one food source and kind of help avert the spread of that a little.
Yeah. So September, October was pretty much dry for me. Like I I hunted a good bit, and just like I said, I could not get mature deer, within bow range of me. Right. Honestly, I really didn't see that many. So yeah, I was a little nervous. I really was. And I was really nervous for the Harrison County farm. I was really nervous that something big had happened there because I just wasn't seeing the deer. But so fast forward to Halloween, we had a pretty decent cold front come in. I'm hunting over some scrapes that I've been, that I've had some mock scrapes and stuff in the area. Now I've gotten photos of deer. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm getting photos of deer. The cameras kind of died down. Then it got really hot and really dry. They kind of died down a little bit. But once it started to cool down, some cameras started to pick up. And then if you had some cameras in certain areas, you had some action and stuff there. But once the rut started to come in, I went out and started diving in a little bit deeper into like the property, because I was trying to stay out of the deeper parts for a while. And then finally, like I said, around it was actually Halloween. I went out and I had a younger buck pushing a doe, an adult doe, and she ended up coming within 15 yards. Yeah, well, actually, this kind of transpired a couple different times. So he pushed her up the hill to me, and then she stood there for a little bit. And I was more interested in looking at him to see what what type of buck, what caliber, what he was, right? Looking at him, and then I know she's an adult doe. This is a big doe that's standing here. And then so she's kind of milling around. Well, then he pushes her off behind me and off to my left. So I kind of turn, I'm watching her. Well, I get an opportunity to draw. So I draw and I'm getting anchored on her because I'm gonna take this doe. I'm gonna let the buck go. And he comes up and pushes her again. So then she runs back behind me again and runs around and gets to then about 15 yards of me, but she's downhill. I'm sitting on top of a hill. She's downhill of me. So I get drawn again. I get anchored. And then I'm, looking for my exit. So I'm looking at her. I said, where do I want this arrow to exit? And then I'm aiming for that exit, which with me being as high up as I am, I'm coming in a little high to exit low. So I get on the shoulder, I'm looking at her. I let release, smacks her. She turns, wheels, and runs and takes off. I don't really hear her crash. The buck kind of runs after her. I don't know if he really knows what's going on, but he kind of ran after her. Um, but so I didn't hear her crash. I didn't hear anything. And so I gave it probably about 10, 15 minutes. I got on the phone, texted some things, looked at a couple messages. Then I started packing my stuff up, and then I rappelled down the tree, got all that stuff put away, walked down to find my arrow. So I found my arrow and I picked it up. I smelled it. I'm like, man, that smells like guts, man. Like, how on earth? Like, there's no way. There's no way, given the angle of the shot that I had and where I know I'm pretty confident where that arrow hit. It's like, there's no way I hit guts on this deer, right?
Mhm.
So now at the time I was using the 1.5 sever hybrid. So it's a 1.5 inch mechanical with a fixed blade on the front of it, like a 3/4 of an inch fixed blade.
Okay.
So I get down, like I said, I start kind of a little blood trailing. I just seeing little dots of blood, like not a whole lot of blood, just dot, dot, dot. I'm like, oh, because this is coming. This is getting in my mind. This is a gut hit for some reason, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean, with the angle that you're at up in a tree stand and, the angle of penetration, the exit, you'd think, that exit would be just pouring or
Hmm.
spraying really well if it was double long.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was hoping. Like, this looks like gut to me, and I don't know how. Like, I seriously don't know how this happened if this was guts. So I put the arrow where I went back to stuck the arrow in the ground, not at last blood, but about the place where she was when I shot her. And I just backed out and I gave her, because this is still like the guy owns the property, was out there hunting too. And this is like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I knew he'd be hunting till about 10, maybe 11 o'clock. So I'm like, well, that'll give me a couple hours to just let her sit. If it was, and then, we can deal with that. Once he's out of the woods, we'll go down here and start tracking. I back out, go back to my truck, and I wait for him to come up over the hill in his truck. And I tell him what went on. And him and I went out, and long story short, she didn't go like 60 yards. It was ended up being a double lung. Caught the top of the one lung, the bottom of the other lung, and then on its exit, it must have caught the stomach, because that's where all the gut matter came from, and that's why it smelled like that. But yeah, it was a double lung. She went 60, 70 yards maybe and piled up. So she didn't go very far. Still, the blood wasn't that great.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if something started to clot sooner than normal, or I mean, we'll
Who
never
knows?
know.
Who
But
knows?
you put those things through your mind when you're, especially when you see what you thought was a great shot and you're in your own head there for a minute. So
Yeah. Yeah. So then I hunted all of rut. My buddy came up from Texas again. I hunted with them. Nobody seen any mature deer at all. I seen some when I was hunting. I seen some, but like no opportunities at any at all. Right? No, I don't think anybody. I think they eventually shot a couple does, is what they end up shooting at a certain point, right? And so that was pretty much dry. Like the activity just wasn't really high. Like it was really odd this year, right?
which is
And
surprising because your buddy that comes up from Texas just seems to be a magnet for, I haven't seen this deer at all on the farm and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, yeah, well, there it is.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a couple of smaller bucks that they took opportunities at. Like I know, one of the grandsons, he ended up shooting about yeah, probably about 2.5 year old 8 point. Unfortunately, they weren't able to find him. A little spike. They got a spike. They shot a spike, and that one, it was another grandson that shot that one. And he texted me, said, "Hey, I just shot a spike." I said, "Oh, okay, I'll be done." I said, "Yeah, don't worry about coming down. I got it." Because him and I were hunting. I was just above him when he was hunting. So, so I was happy for him, and I got a picture of him on my trail camera dragging the deer out because I had a trail camera down where he was, so he was dragging the deer out. But yeah, pretty much all of rut. You know, I I I told myself this year, I'm like, I am not taking any weddings or DJing any weddings or anything during the rut again because it seems like the day there was one spot I had a mock scrape up there, and I know that there's bucks that like to run around up there during this time of year. So the day that I DJ'd that wedding, there was a handful of really good bucks running around up there on that camera because I went up and checked it. When I think it was that Sunday I went up there or somewhere in that time frame, and I pulled the card and I went ahead and climbed the tree and was hunting. Well, as I'm going through that card, it was that Saturday. There they are, middle of the day up there on it. There's a hot doe up there, and there was a couple dainty ones up there. I'm like, freaking typical,
Yep. Every time.
freaking typical. Like I swear I'm not doing this again. Unfortunately, I think I do have a couple scheduled already. So, um, so then youth season comes in,
Hmm.
and so that's always the weekend before Thanksgiving is when our youth season comes in. So I took the my youngest son out. He loves going out with the guns, and I tried. He's not so keen on the crossbow, but he loves the firearm season. So we go out. And this year, his goal was I asked him, I said, listen, it's your season. We'll do whatever you want to do. He's like, I think I want to hold off for a buck this year. I said, okay, we can do that. Right. No problem. So that morning, I don't think we really seen much that morning, but that evening of the opening day, we had a couple smaller bucks that we kind of walked in on one of the top pasture fields. And now I know this kid's a good shot, right? And with a straight wall cartridge, he's hitting steel out to 300 yards. With his firearm, it's a Henry 360 buckhammer lever action. He's consistently hitting steel at 300 yards. So we see these deer. I see them. I get him in binoculars. Okay, they're bucks. He's like, okay. So I'm trying to get a range on them. I cannot get a range on these deer. It will not pick them up. I'm trying to hit like things that are next to them. Like for some reason, it was just not giving me a reading on them. And he's like, I can do it. I can do it. I'm like, buddy, we don't have a good range on these, and it's not worth taking a shot and risking injuring, a deer or something else, right? So
Hmm.
I'd much rather get a good reading or good range, so you know what your true holdover is. Because this isn't 100 yards. We're at it's 200 yards plus. Like I know you can do it, but you need to know what your holdover is, and
Yeah.
I cannot get a good range on these deer.
So to pause you and circle back with the youth tag, when I can't remember, is that 18 or 16 that they are no longer allowed to hunt the youth season?
18. So as long as they're under
18.
18, yep. As long as they're under 18, they're considered a youth.
Okay. So he's got a couple more years.
Yeah, he's got next season, and then he'll turn 17 this year. So this will be his last year being able to hunt the youth season. Then he'll be
Jeez,
18,
that's
18 for the next one.
man. Can't believe your kids are getting that old, and I'm sure you can't either.
No, it's like you blink. I've got one that's turning 19, and then the other one will be 18 in a couple years.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm an old fart these days,
Time flies when you're having fun.
right? So I don't know if we went back out Sunday or not. I think he had to work. Yeah. So Saturday we hunted. Sunday he had to work. So that was into youth season because we tried to make a move on those deer because they were younger. I figured they'd be dumb enough to where we might be able to make a move on them and get closer. Turned out they weren't as dumb as I was hoping they were, so they took off. But we didn't get we so that ended that hunt. So then we fast forward to actual gun season itself now. So Monday after Thanksgiving, I take the boy out with me. Because I want him. He only hunts with a firearm, so I want to give him the opportunity. So we got opening morning. We end up getting on a couple does, and I told him, I said, those does, if you want to shoot one, you can. He's like, I'm looking for a buck. I want to get a buck. I'm like, okay, that's fine, right? So we go sit in this spot. And then pretty much the rest of the morning, we didn't really see much. I think there was like one smaller deer that was kind of hanging around, but never came in. Um, so he started getting cold, got bored. So we got down and we kind of walked around a little bit, see if we could like walk up on something or, just kind of still hunt our way through. Didn't really come across anything there. Went back out in the evening, didn't really see anything. Then we fast forward to Tuesday because Monday that night going into Tuesday, it snowed. So Tuesday, because he had to go to school Tuesday. So it had been an evening hunt. So the snow had come and gone. The weather had stabilized. It was cold. And I said, buddy, he came home from school. I said, buddy, this is the day. Grab your clothes. We're going to go hunting. You're going to have I tell you, you're probably going to shoot or have an opportunity at a good deer today. It's just the way things are lining up. It's cold. I don't want to go, buddy. I'm telling you, it's going to be worth it. He's like, he's like, no, I don't want to go. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going. So I grabbed the 360 buck hammer and, grabbed my orange and I went to where I wanted to take him. So I'm sitting and I see deer moving and this is getting later. It's getting closer to it's not really last light yet, but we're within that last hour before last light. Right. And I see a deer moving off down. And if we call it 5 points. I don't know if you're familiar with that location up there, but usually we have like a ladder stand up there and we run like a feeder or something. I don't know if you ever hunted up there, but there's a valley down off to my right. There's there's hills that feed into this, ridge lines that feed in, and there's like a valley down off to my right that all these things kind of feed into.
Okay.
Well, I see these deer down there. I'm like, okay, I see at least 3 deer down there. All right. And I'm waiting, I don't want to shoot any more does off the property because we've hit them pretty hard over the last couple of years. So now I'm looking more to try to level out with a couple bucks, for us to harvest. So I'm watching, I'm like, all right, so those are does. And then I kept seeing another one, but I couldn't tell what it was. Like I knew there was so I seen the 3 does. And then there was another one that was kind of a little bit further behind them. I just couldn't tell what it was quite yet. Right. So I know there was 4. I seen 4. Well, the 3 does come up and I still don't see where this other 4th deer went. I'm kind of looking around where did that deer go? I'm looking, and I'm watching these three does because they're working their way up towards where I'm at. Right. And finally I see feet moving back where they came from. And so I'm looking a little bit and then I'm like, that looks like the deer's got antlers on it. So I pull my binoculars up. I'm looking at him here. Nice, big, wide 8-point, man. Buck that's just kind of trailing behind these does. And I'm watching him mill around. And I'm like, ooh, if I get an opportunity, I'm taking this deer, right?
Absolutely.
I'm sitting.
Especially with, you were having that kind of a somber season, everything starting slow. I know at one point you just didn't even feel motivated to get out. So that's got to be how are you feeling?
It's well. It was feeling pretty good at this point. So I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, you know? Hold on. I'm sorry, I got a text. Um, it was it felt pretty good, and I'm like uber excited because finally I'm getting this opportunity at a buck. I've been waiting to get on a decent one all season. Like you said, I think I kind of glossed over some of the finer points of the earlier part of the season. Like I was to the point during, and I was getting really really irritated and frustrated, not because I wasn't getting like seeing mature bucks in front of me. It was just the fact I was having a hard time getting like mature deer in general around me. Like I'd go out and I'd get like a fawn or something to show up. I'm like, where are all these freaking deer at? Like, where did they go? It just gets uber frustrating. And I didn't have an expectation of going out and like harvesting a deer every time that I went out. It's just the fact that you go out, you climb, you get down, you go out, you climb, you get down, you go out, you climb, you get down, and you're just not seeing the deer that you know should be in that area. Just it gets frustrating at a certain point, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I did get very frustrated. But here I am in a gun season. Um, Now I've got I see this buck coming in, and I'm like, so, like, every time I make decision, I'm gonna like harvest a deer. I always get a little jittery. Like, you know, it excites me. It's never, it's just a doe, and I don't get excited. No, I get excited when I know I'm going to be taking a doe. Like there's a complete change in my in my whole operating system at that point. I'm excited when I'm getting ready to harvest anything at this point, right? But I see him come, I'm like, oh, this is a good deer. This is a really good deer. And I'm watching these does, and he's taking his sweet time. Like he's moving through all this thick stuff. Now, mind you, he's within range at a certain point, but I can't really get a good line of sight on him with the rifle yet. So I'm just kind of just waiting to see how this plays out. Well, as this is going on, I'm watching and I see a head pop up on one of the main trails, you know, up from the bottom from where they're coming. And there's this log that blocks their trail. It doesn't block them from crossing it because every one of these deer cross this stupid log. But there's this log, and all of a sudden I see this little head pop up, and it's one of the does, and she's like 30 yards from me, and I'm up in a tree stand wearing bright orange, you know, and this isn't like a tree stand that's like got a lot of back cover to it. It's just a big, tall, straight like poplar or like a poplar tree. There's not a whole lot of stuff around me. I'm just kind of like sitting here. Um, but
So
anyway,
fairly exposed and just
yeah,
feeling like everybody in the world can see you.
everybody in the world can see me. Plus, it's gun season, and they're going to be really, 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 really jumpy, right? So, but this little doe, she comes up, she hits the trail, starts working away towards, you know, our feeder that we have there. And then I'm watching, and then another doe comes up and over. She hits the trail, starts walking through. But as they're walking, they're starting to kind of work their way up towards where I'm at off the trail up towards my stand. But then Mama Doe comes up and she's making a beeline right to where I'm at. I'm like, this ain't good because if she sees me, she's gonna spook, and then that buck's gone. As soon as she sees or hears anything, she's gone, right? So I'm sitting there watching. Well, this doe is underneath of me, and then I see that buck head pop up there on that log. I'm like, oh, he's right there. You know, I'm watching him. I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good because I can't move because the doe's kind of looking at me a little bit because she knows something's up there, but she's not 100% sure. And I'm like, this game's over with because she's going to snort here in a minute because she's going to pick up my scent where I walked in or something because she's getting dangerously close to the tree stand. But she doesn't. She turns and walks right back out towards the feeder and just continues her way on like nothing was going on. So I jokingly, I said she probably didn't want that buck following her, so she set him up. He been bothered her. So she's like, you know what, I got something for you, and it didn't
Yeah.
alert that it was there. So
Well, and more often than not, you see that doe look up, and there's a 99% chance she's gonna stomp or blow. And
Mhm.
for her to not do either, you know, a lot of times they look up at you, and even if they don't blow out, she's gonna be flighty, sending the signals to the other deer. And that's just, yeah, she must have wanted him out of her way.
So yeah, typically you're right. Those doe will they're usually the ones that they were. I can't tell you how many times does have ruined a hunt for me. That's why that saying exists. Like if she blows, she goes. If she blows, she goes.
Yeah.
So, um, but no, I don't know why she didn't. Like I stood as still as I could while I wasn't standing, I was sitting, but I didn't move. Like I hadn't even got the gun up to my shoulder yet. Like it's still like laying across my lap because the deer just kind of where they were at, like it's just there, right? But so he's sitting there and he's sniffing that log, and then he's watching them, and he sees that they seem to like just go ahead and keep walking on. So that he made the decision he's going to jump the log and then start walking the same trail that they walked in on. So instead of actually diving into, and when I say trail, what this is an actual like logging road that they had cut when they came through to do some salvage timber. So most of them were walking on that, but there's a tree line or thick stuff on one side of that road, and then sitting in thick stuff on the side that I'm in. So there's this nice little runway between those two spots. And he, instead of taking the route that the does took, he didn't come into the thick stuff I'm sitting in. He just stayed on that runway of that road, that logging road. So I got away to the point to where he was somewhat past me, and then I just kind of slowly started to get the gun up. I got it shouldered, and then I got my bead right behind his shoulder. I'm like, I can't believe this is actually going to happen because this is 25 yards. This is well within bow range for me, and here I am with a same old cartridge that most people are like, 200-yard shots and stuff with, and I've got this deer. It's a chip shot at 25 yards. So I get the hammer back, and I got the beat. I got the dot right behind his shoulder. Good point. Squeeze one off. Boom! Hits him. He turns to start running back the way that he came from. And when he turns, I'm watching him run past me. I remember seeing where the exit was. I'm like, he smoked, right? But I have a firearm in my hand, and it's a lever action, which means I could do quick follow-up shots. So why not?
Yeah.
So I rack another one in, and I get back on him. I'm braced up against the tree now, and I get back on him. I'm leading. I'm leading a little bit, let the next one go, and then I also just watch his butt drop. Boom! His butt drops, and he starts to drag himself off. He literally like almost like he was paralyzed, like maybe a spine shot, and he started to drag himself off that logging road. And then I watch him where he goes, and then he kind of drags himself down a little bit further, and then he stops at a certain point, and I can tell he's still sitting there alive. So I'm like, I got one more round because you're allowed to have 3 rounds in the gun. So I rack another one in, kind of get up on him a little bit, kind of pick my spot, and I go squeeze one off, and all of a sudden I see this little sapling that's in front of him starts quaking. So I'm assuming my 3rd round hit that sapling is what happened, but he didn't move from that spot. I'm excited at this point because there's a couple things here. Like, first off, I can't believe this happened. Secondly, this is a nice buck. And third, this is the first like nice deer. This is actually the first trophy caliber buck I've shot with a firearm. I've never done it in the past. Like it's always been button bucks or does. So this is the first like trophy caliber buck I've shot with a gun. And so there's a lot of kind of emotions that's kind of gone through me at this point, and we would like to thank you for your support of the Chasing Your Experience podcast. If you'd like to continue to support the podcast, then please check out our online store at bonfire.com. There, you can purchase exclusive Chasing Your Experience podcast t-shirts and hoodies for all members of your family. Check out the link down in the description to find the store. And now, back to the pod. And it's always one of those things like, because I can see him, I know that he's expiring. So it's always that bittersweet kind of moment. Like you're happy, but yet you have some like empathy towards the animal. You're like, it is a life that you're taking. So it's kind of that mixed bag of emotions going on there, but still excitement is kind of outweighing this because like, oh, I can't. Last year was kind of rough on me when it came to antlered deer, and then also this year was starting off the same way. I thought it might not even have happened, but
Yeah,
it did.
I mean, it was very much trending in the direction that you were just going to end the season on potentially another doe from one of the other farms and then just wrap it up, call it a season.
Right.
But, that cold snap and that snow, man, just nothing gets you more excited to go get out. Well, I guess some people.
I,
But So we like to do it with the archery equipment. So let's back it up to your Henry. What's your setup there? What are you running? How many grains? As far as ammo, what's your optics if you've got any?
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, and hearing that you guys are hitting steel hard out to 300 yards with a lever gun on a straight wall, that's impressive. So I'm excited to hear what you guys are running through that thing.
So we are using, so it's the Henry, it's the side gate. I don't think they refer to it as the big boy. I think there's like the snow what they call like the big boy or whatever. But it's just the Henry side gate lever action. It's got like a list shy of a 19-inch barrel on it. It's a 360 buck hammer, which is a cartridge that was a collaboration between Henry Rifle and Remington, is who originally came up with this round. So I have the Remington Core Lock, which is a soft point
Mhm.
bullet for it. So it comes in two different grains, a 180 and a 200. I went with the heavier of the two because who I am. And so that one, yeah, it's a 200 grain soft. It's their Core Lock, which is a soft point. It's not a hollow point. It's not a full metal. It's a soft point, which has the exposed lead at the end of the jacket. And what else? I mean, like I said, we get out to. I don't know if I would use that and actually try to harvest an animal at 300 yards because I don't think it's going to have the same terminal ballistics. Like the terminal ballistics isn't there for that, but it definitely um about 250 and in is definitely the
Okay.
sweet spot for that. Um
So
we
speaking
have it.
of terminal ballistics, when you get I guess not so much terminal ballistics, but when you are hitting the steel at 300 yards, what's your holdover on that? What's that looking like?
It's a little over 20 inches, I think, is what the holdover
Wow.
is at that distance.
Yeah.
Um, we've got so that rifle we have a Vortex Crossfire 1x4 on that one. So yeah, it's a 1x4 Crossfire. It's got the illuminated red dot in it. I really like that for that type of rifle, that the little red dot. We can zoom it out. We can zoom it in if we want to, but obviously, I like the low power magnification for up and close for snap shooting. But if we need to dial it in for those little bit distant shots and get a nice sight picture, we can do that. So, um, but that was pretty much one power the entire time. So
Oh, for sure.
at 25 yards, at 25 yards,
Yeah.
it's pretty much the one power the entire time.
Oh,
Um,
well, and it's a good thing you have that one power. You'd be like trying to poke your head around the side of the scope and try and put it back to,
yeah,
regain your sight picture, pull away and line back up. But so it's forward thinking on your part.
yeah. I mean, it comes with some experience, because I run a one by a low powered variable optic on my AR. So, for like classes and stuff. So they kind of learn that when you start getting that heavy magnification, like it is really hard to find targets in that, especially if you a closer target. A lot of people run into issues with that. They misidentify or shoot the wrong target because they can't properly identify it with all that magnification. So it's nice to have that lower powered. But anyways, uh, yeah, that was about it. I had to put a cheek riser on that to get a good cheek weld on with the Henry because the Henry's kind of set up for for the iron sights, which sit pretty low. So the comb of that stock is pretty low. It does set up very high. So we put a cheek riser on it, and it's a leather. It also doubles as a cartridge holder, so it's leather, and it sticks up probably about that high off of it. It's a pretty high cheek riser, and
Okay.
it helps tremendously with getting a consistent cheek weld and stuff with that. So, but yeah, and that's pretty much about it. Like, there's not a whole lot. I mean, it's a lever action. It's a lever action Henry. Not a whole lot of bells and whistles. You know, I think this year, I think I'm gonna switch this over to the hammered down ammo from Federal because it looks like they're the way that between how they design their cartridge and also the powder mixture they're using looks like they're getting a little bit better velocities off of a lever action style rifle versus some of the others, which is whatever. I mean, we might be splitting hairs with that, but I would rather go with that because looking into it like that, that seems to get a little bit better velocities. In the
Yeah,
case
and
of point,
any leg up that you can get, so the better off you are.
right, and in the case in point, I guess I have for that is the Hornady Levolution. I can't say that right. It's too many like L's and R's together. Um,
Levolution.
yeah, that one. They have because I ended up buying a 45-70 this past season, and so I got 45-70 rounds from it. But the problem is that they have theirs tested out with a 20-inch barrel, and generally, well, almost always until you get to a certain point, a longer barrel is going to produce faster velocities on a round. So the Henry's, there's about a 18 and a half, 19-inch barrel. It's not that long. So you do lose velocity with that. And so when you look at the box of ammo, they tell you what your velocities and your terminal ballistics are. That's for a 20-inch barrel, which you're going to lose about 200 to 300 feet per second, about with that being an inch or two shorter of a barrel. So it's going to affect your overall ballistics. That's what, and then when you get the federal ammo, when they tested theirs, it was with actually in conjunction with Henry, and they said this is for an 18 and a half inch barrel is what these velocities are for. And if you do the math between the two, the hammer downs are getting better velocities than what the comparable Hornady is.
Okay. And now are the twist rates varying between those 18, 20-inch barrel or 24-inch barrels?
No, that's all about generally what is it that's on the 45-70. I don't know if it's a 1 in 9 or a 1 in 12. I don't remember, but they're generally pretty similar. The
Okay.
twist rate, all that is stabilizes the longer round or a heavier round. So a faster twist rate, it doesn't matter the barrel length, and it's the twist rate that deals with the stabilization. All you're looking at is you're getting a faster velocity out of the round. Some would even argue that a shorter barrel is actually a little bit more accurate than a longer barrel. But the fact is the twist rate doesn't matter if it's a 7-inch barrel or a 20-inch barrel. That's as fast as that bullet's going to spin. Is like it's just a 1 in 7, then that's how fast that bullet's going to spin. Is that 1 in 7 twist? Doesn't matter the length of the barrel. It doesn't pick up spin based upon the length of the barrel. So it's getting it all from the rifling. So, and generally speaking, like heavier rounds for a caliber usually needs a faster twist rate to stabilize them. There's some calculations you can do, like a Miller stability factor, things like that you can do some math with and kind of figure out what you mathematically would be your optimal round. I did that with my Remington 700 or my 7mm rim mag, and the 168 Burger from Federal turned out to be the most stable out of that platform. And I did the terminal ballistic ones. I did I mathed all of those, and according to the math, which once again you need to go check this. This isn't 100% like gospel, but to the math, that 168 grain was better for that 7mm rim mag compared to like the terminal ballistic or something, or the terminal ascent or whatever it is, or a couple other rounds that I ran through it. So that's a whole nother like nerdism to get into.
Well, and it's all about finding what your rifle likes to eat, I've been fortunate with my Ruger American 20-inch barrel 308. I've shot the Federal Trophy Copper, the Federal Terminal Ascent, and the other one's eluding me. I think it's got a Nosler bullet in it out of the Federal build. It's eluding me, but they're all shooting relatively consistent at steel out, 300 yards. So I was happy to see that, and that it at least likes Federal ammo, and it's not so picky.
Yeah. So, like you said, you eventually just go out and find what your rifle really likes, and if you really want to get in the weeds, there's actually a really big argument right now to where hand loading isn't as cost effective as what it used to be, and it's just going in and just getting quality factory ammo, whatever. That's a whole nother discussion. But going through and finding what your rifle likes best, and I think that's what a lot of people run into, because you have like, oh, I'm a Ford guy, I'm a Chevy guy, I'm a Federal guy, I'm a Winchester guy, I'm a Hornady guy, and they just can't get past that. It's like, just maybe try something else, or just let that person be them. And if this is what their rifle likes, then let them shoot it. Like just because your math said that, like I'll tell you, like once I'm ready to start diving really deep in that 7mm rim mag, I'm gonna shoot several different rounds. I'm definitely gonna get that 168 because that's what this says. Hey, this is what's the most stable round is. But if it doesn't perform as well as, say, another one, then I think real world results would tell you might want to go with that one versus what the math told you.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
saying.
and you got to get out of that brand loyalty, brand specific thing
Yeah.
too. I shoot Federal out of the 308. I shoot Hornady out of the 350 Legend.
Hmm.
Um, and that 350 Legend will smack steel all day at 250 yards with those Hornady 170 grains. So, uh,
Absolutely.
go through some stuff. Don't be, so sold from the industry on just that specific thing.
Absolutely. And I am not as much as a gun nerd as I am an archery nerd, but it may not seem so as I just sit here telling you about like the Miller stability factor and all this stuff. But I'm more of a nerd in archery than I am firearms. So I'm a little bit more, I guess, laissez-faire when it comes to firearms, when it comes to like buying, ammo and stuff, versus what I am with the archery. So I guess I can see both sides of that argument. But so back to the story where we were at. So the problem is, so I now have this deer, I have this buck that's down now, or on his way, on his last, last moments on this earth. And so I'm trying to get out to the property owner. I'm trying to call him. I can't, I've got a little bit of spotty service. I'm like, hey, eventually I get a hold of him and say, hey, I got a really nice buck down. Um, and I don't think he came out hunting that day. He told me he wasn't feeling very well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, okay. Well, I call in and say, hey, I got this, I got this buck down and stuff. And just to let him know, he's like, well, you need help. I'm like, if you're feeling okay, I'm not going to tell you no, because yeah, I wouldn't mind, you know, because I'm out there by myself. And he's like, oh, well, it'll take me about 30 minutes, but I'll be out there. I'm like, are you feeling okay? He's like, yeah, I came in the house, I got warm. I think it's just because it just was cold. I just couldn't get warm, and I got warmed up. I'm ready to go now. I'm like, okay, well, I'll see you here in a little bit. Um,
Awesome.
so he started to make his way out, and then I took that time to go ahead and field. The deer had expired, and I went up and I started looking at him. I'm excited. I'm like a schoolgirl at this point. So I'm going up there, like I'm thanking ancestors. I'm thanking everybody for this opportunity. Going through the list of people to thank, and just for the opportunities and stuff, and thankful to, and thankful for, him, and I guess you say his sacrifice, whatever it is you want to call it, right? Thank you for his contribution, what he's going to be to the family. And so I'm looking at him, and I see where my first round hit. I'm like, okay, so there's where they're initially hitting. I'm like, where'd that other round go? Because I'm thinking it was a spine shot, right? And I'm looking, and then I see this little trickle of blood coming out like from underneath his tail. I'm like, that's odd. So I kind of lift his tail up. I look, I darn near Texas heart shot that deer. Like it was like an inch from the chocolate starfish, dude. Like it was.
You have such a way of painting a picture.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to be descriptive, but yet not offensive as I'm explaining this, man. But what had happened was when that round impacted where it did, it just shattered his pelvis, and he just dropped and then drug himself off to the side. Um, you know, either one of those rounds honestly would have been lethal. By the time it was all said and done. So I got him field dressed, got a couple quick pictures while I was, up there while I was with him, the best I could. It's cold. My hands are freezing, and I don't have anything to hold my phone on because it's just what it is. So kind of got a picture of him on the ground. I'm starting to send texts and stuff out to people. I get him field dressed. I get out my drag strap that I have that I got from, I can't remember the name of those guys now. I don't even know if they're even still a thing. Uncle Stubbs, I think is what it is. The Uncle Stubbs field drag. So I get his legs kind of tied up with his antlers, and then I start dragging him out because I'm like, well, I can at least start to drag and get him because I'm on top of the ridge at this point, and there's snow on the ground, so it's probably gonna be an easy drag up to a certain point, and I'll probably meet him he'll be coming in with a side by side, so I'll probably meet him somewhere. So I'm dragging, and then I get to the point where I got to come downhill, which all right, no big deal. It's easier to drag downhill. So I start dragging his deer, and all of a sudden I start feeling like there's not so much resistance. Like the drag strap starting to lose tension. I'm like, what's going on? Next thing I know, wham! He hits the back of my legs, and I'm on the ground. It's like his one last fu to me. He came hauling.
Yeah.
picked up speed and like taking me out. So now I'm like laying on the ground, like kind of half like sitting on top of him, like laying here because he literally did take my legs out from underneath me. He hit me so hard, and so I'm like laying there, I'm laughing, and like all these things are going through, and then I get up and I kind of like jokingly kind of scold him for it, just being stupid, and then I get him down to the bottom of the hill. Um, which kind of gets us close to the big old oak tree that has since got blown over, and the
Mm.
kind of little cross section here. So I get into that point, and I go ahead and like drop everything because I want to take all my stuff to the truck. I'm like, well, Ken's not here yet, so I'll just go ahead and take all my stuff back to the truck and meet him there at the truck. So I don't have to deal with to have all this stuff with me. And I don't think I even made it out to the next pasture. Then he came up over top of the hill with a side by side. So we just threw everything side by side, went back. We got the deer loaded up, got into the truck, got him in the truck, snapped a couple quick photos, and I was on my way. and and,
Man,
and kids looking at deer, I was like, dude, that's a good one. He's like, the more I look at him, the bigger he's getting.
so no ground shrinkage on that one.
Yeah, no ground shrinkage. He was
Good.
he was, he was a good deer, man. Like really good. Just full of fat. Like I said, he was just full of fat for that time of year with just coming off like the main part of the rut. So we're beyond. I mean, you'll still get some running activity around that time frame, but it's on the very like last little bit of desperately seeking, is what the juries would call it. Like it's that last little phase of that. Um, but yeah, man, he still had a lot of fat, good body mass to him just for that time of year. Because generally, about they've lost weight by that point because the last month all they've been doing is chasing does,
Hmm.
fighting bucks, right? So
It's a hard time of year on them.
it is. Luckily, there's probably an excess amount of food out there that they were able to really stock up on and really put on like extra poundage to kind of help them through that. So this coming into this next season, we're probably going to have some tanks running around, because
Absolutely.
they'll probably make it through this winter. How hard it was. Even I can't say it was a harsh winter, but we definitely got a lot of snow. So, but
Yeah,
we're not.
one of the harder winters that Ohio's had in some time.
Yeah,
I remember it was before we had our little brown dog, and we just had the corgi. I think Marietta, where the wife lives in Northeast Ohio, had between 12 and 18 inches of snow that year, and I think that's the last major storm I recall the area having.
yeah, I think I remember I shot a deer during that too. Yeah, I almost not to, almost the same spot. Yeah, because I had to drag her uphill to get back downhill.
Yeah.
And I almost did ride her like a sled. I'm like, I better not, because it was snowing enough.
Yeah, yeah. A little bad juju with that, maybe.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that's not a good look. Um,
But speaking of does and stuff, I think you've got one final tail there for the end of season. Two
a
more.
few more yet.
Greedy.
So I know, right? But so I ended up bringing the buck back, and I was going to hang him overnight to take him to another processor. But I got a hold of my normal people, the Cunninghams. I got a hold of them and said, "Hey, are you guys still like doing taxidermy?" Because they kind of got out of the processing side of it. And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Drop him off whenever you want. Drop off or whatever, and we'll take it." Well, then his daughter, I texted both of them with a picture of the deer. She goes, "Hey, by the way, I can process him for you if you want me to." I'm like, "Yes." I'm on my way. Just so I didn't have to have him hang in the back. I mean, it was cold enough that he could hang overnight, but it was just nice to have him someplace that I didn't have to deal with it the next day. So dropped him off. So they did it start to finish. So hopefully, I don't know when I'll get him back, but hopefully, I don't know. It might not be till this. It won't be this time. Well, it might be this time next year. I might get him back. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. He does a lot. Like he's got a lot going on.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I got the meat back and all that. So that took care of that. Well, then now I'm back on the back on the doe train and back to archery season now, and we started getting some cold weather, and I think this was the Monday after the 2-day weekend of firearms went out, because I took the kid out. I went out, the kid went out on that weekend. I think he went out like a little bit, didn't want to do a whole lot because it was cold and he didn't want to do it. I'm like, buddy, have you not learned a lesson at this point of what happens when
Right.
it's cold? But I went out, didn't really get an opportunity anything with the 4570. So put that away for the year. That following Monday, I just stayed around the house here because I got 6 acres and I've got permission to recover deer if they go in the neighbor's property, which is almost a guarantee. So
Yeah.
I got permission from them to go do that. I took care of that like day number one. Like, hey, I'm not asking to hunt, but if I say like I end up harvesting a deer and it runs on your property, you mind if I recover it? Oh, dude, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, great.
Awesome.
So I got a ground blind set up here and I run a feeder. I know the dreaded feeder. And a doe came in and I got my little heater in there with me because it's cold. And it's just, I'm sitting in the back part of the property and she comes in with a couple others. I get a good 20-yard shot on her, draw back. I'll let this arrow, got a good anchor, let the arrow go. And so it hits her. It sounded like it was more, it definitely sounded kind of like chest, but sounded like further back, like more, not like full on guts, but definitely a little bit further back, like that kind of that hollow kind of thunk that you hear. I'm like, well, that was a little bit odd. Well, at the same time, I hear that though, like I hear this like the solid, like little thunk, but also hear something like ricocheting off like the gravel behind her. Like it's hard to explain. It didn't sound like a stick or anything that was like ricocheting, but it didn't sound like a full arrow. Like it was like really weird. But I could hear it ricocheting like or rambling around on the ground on the rocks,
Kind
kind
of
of.
a hollow sound.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
I'm like, I wonder what that was, right? So she takes off and she stops on the other side of, right on the edge of the neighbor's property. And she kind of sits there for a little bit. Then she kind of dives in. So I get out and I start looking. I'm looking for my arrow. Well, I go to where she was standing when I shot, and laying there was the front half of my arrow with the broadhead side of the arrow just laying there, right? The rest of the arrow is like MIA. I'm like, what happened? I I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna let Kendrick do a track because it's here at the house. It'll be a nice, easy thing for him to do. So I go grab him, get his leash on him, bring him out. He's super. He knows when the leash comes out that with that leash, he knows what's going on. He's like, yay! He's like, he's pumped. The black dog, the black lab, he doesn't know what's going on, but I think he's a little sad because he got left behind because he's seen how excited Kendrick was, and he got left behind. So I take Kendrick out, and Kendrick hasn't done this in a while, but so I take him out. He does a couple like circles, and then eventually he picks up on like, oh, he picks up, I guess, on whatever scent he was looking for. And then he just started making a beeline. He's like, and that part of the property used to be that we go on to get this deer used to be a swamp. Well, it's got all the remnants of like the cattails and all the tall grasses and stuff, are still there. So it's like a jungle that we're going through. It's a thick, nasty jungle that we're tracking through, and he's working his way through, and I got to try to keep him untangled and this and that, and I could smell her. Like I knew she was close. I could smell her, and he's tracking, and eventually he finds her, and I see her laying there. I'm like, oh, there she is. So I'm looking at her, and I'm looking, and the exit it wasn't like back at the hip, but it was probably mid guts, maybe you would say, is where the exit
Okay.
was, right? And there was a section of my arrow sticking out and I could see the fletching. So the fletchings kind of got hung up there, right? So I pull that section out. I'm looking at it. I'm like, well, I don't know exactly how much arrow. I don't know how if the arrow just broke in half. I don't know yet, right? But I know it broke, right? And I know it broke on the exit. So I went ahead and took that piece, put it, stuffed it in my bag. I got her field dressed, took her, and dropped her off at the Cunningham's, dealt with that. But then I took those two sections of the arrow and looked at it. And there's a whole middle section of that arrow missing, like several inches of arrow that's missing. So that arrow broke, at least in three pieces. I don't know if not
Were you
more.
ever able to track down that other part that went flying?
Nope. I looked and
Still
looked
no.
and looked and can't find it. I have no idea. Um, so that really kind of that had me a little bit nervous about that particular arrow. Um, And I know a lot of people have had, I'm starting to see more mixed reviews now. Like if you get on the website and look at some of the reviews, before everyone's like, oh, this is a great arrow. This is this. Now I'm starting to see more of the same experience that I'm getting, that the arrows are breaking pretty easy. Which, granted, if I shoot it in something hard, okay, I will accept that the arrow will break.
Yeah.
Um, this didn't hit. This wasn't shoulder. This wasn't. This was like back of lung, liver, guts was its path, right? It did not hit anything hard at all.
Yeah. No, no, obviously no pass through to hit the ground that's hard frozen to blow the arrow apart. Just nothing.
No, nothing. It literally broke in at least three pieces upon exit. So I'm like, I duly noted. I'm like, I think I'm gonna start looking for a new arrow. Which, in the previous other episode, you guys heard us talk about getting involved with Warhead Arrow Company and so far. So that's kind of the story that kind of led into that whole swapping of arrows out, right? Which I was going to go back to another version of an arrow anyways for this season if that didn't transpire. So I was already making a change. So got that taken care of, and then I got involved got selected as field staff for Warhead Arrow Company. They came out with a new light arrow that came out in January of 26. I'm pretty sure I know I wasn't the first person to order them, but I was like, the day they came out, I got on air and made an order for them. Got them delivered, got them cut down, got them tuned, got them fletched, got them flying with the field, ready to hunt. Then I go out in January. We had a good late season snow come in. Good cold front. I got, another set up with a ground blind. I went in with my jet sled, drug my jet sled with my heater and all my extra stuff with me. And I just went out and sat that evening. And this is at Harrison County. So I'm tagged out in Tusk at this point. I've got 3 deer in Tuscarawas County. Head out to Harrison County for this last doe, for this last, animal. And this was a farm that was kind of like iffy about, with about a number of does I've been seeing, because I've not seen a lot of deer on this farm at all this year.
Which is
So
very atypical of that place. You know, it's a high pressured area. They let a handful of people hunt, and that's good. Speaking with the access issues that we were earlier and stuff,
uh,
they just want some deer harvested off the property, and so it's even with the pressure, you always saw deer out there.
yeah, always. And I was a little nervous. Like that got me a little nervous that I was not seeing the amount of deer. And you know what? I'm not expecting to see like 30 deer. Like that's not what I'm asking for. Like it was just the fact it was barely, like there was like always like one doe and her fawn or fawns that I seen all the time, or every now and again, or there'd be a young buck. Now I did have some good bucks on camera, especially during the rut. There was a few that started coming through the area, but still, like doe activity, not very much, right? So I was on the fence. Really, honestly, I'll be honest with you. If I really seriously thought about shooting a button buck out there, because I knew that there was a lot of bucks out there, but not a lot of does. So I figured, well, it wouldn't hurt to take, a younger buck out of here, to kind of help with the whatever the ratio is, right? But and that's what happened, was a little button buck come in. I'm looking at him. I'm like, no, I'm not going. I'm not going to, you know, because there's like the last tradition for us here recently, like the last deer I shoot of the year always gets turned into trail bologna and snack sticks. So I'm trying to maximize that, right? And
For
it's
sure.
always usually a doe, right? So I'm waiting. He kind of mills around for a little bit. He takes off, then he comes back, then he takes off, and he comes back. Well, then when he comes back, he starts looking up in the field behind me, past me, and then I kind of look through and I kind of make a little crack through the back window. There's like 10 deer standing out there. I'm like, where have you guys been this entire season, right? Because there's snow on the ground. Like there's not a whole lot of like food there. I don't know why they're all in this field. There's like 10 deer standing there. And then I'm like, well, if a doe comes in here, she's in trouble, because there's obviously enough deer in this area. And so sure enough, that adult doe comes in, and I get a good 20-yard shot on her. I'm using the Sever 2.0 hybrid at this point, with that Rain Terror from Warhead Arrow Company, 432 total arrow weight. Shooting out of a 29.25-inch draw length, I think is where I'm at with this bow. And complete pass through, get stuck in the frozen ground. She runs off, easy track, easy to find. Like she didn't go very far. Went down, found the arrow, perfect condition. The broadhead, the blades were bent a little bit. I didn't know that till a little bit later on, but the blades ended up getting bent up a little bit. Arrow's in good condition. We go find her, take a couple pictures. Property owner was around, so he brought a 4-wheeler in, helped me drag her out. We threw her on the 4-wheeler, got her out, and that's pretty much the end of my season. Just dropped her off at Miller's, and about not even a week later, had about 30 packs of snack sticks and about 20 some rings of trail bologna.
Man, that's awesome. And it's good to see that the season turned around for you and what looked to be seemingly a hopeless season came back around. That cold front rolled in and hung around for you guys. And I mean, do you have anything to say for anyone that's getting in the dumps like you were? Like we said earlier, you just kind of hang in your head like, oh, I don't know. And there's a level of, I get it. I've been there, like we talked about with my archery issues. But what brought you back around and kind of gave you the motivation to keep at it? Was it the snow? Was it just the fact that you just love to hunt and can't refuse to get out?
It's mostly that it's just the love. I love going out, and I know I did get frustrated. Like it's frustrating, and I understand that. Like you're going to have good days, and you're going to have bad days, and some seasons are just. I mean, this was a really slow season to start with. Like, and there's a lot of people I've seen or heard talk about the same thing. It's just that love and dedication just to keep going. Like, and eventually it just gets to the point where you just start looking for good patterns in this one, like if I had good weather, so if I had a good snow, if I had a good cold front, I went out. Like I just didn't go out just to go out. Like I started really focusing on more, I guess, do I dare say higher percentage days, but during a rut, man, that's a grind. That could be you can have the best hunt of your life, or it could be a grind because you're not seeing anything, or it's very spotty. And
Well, and you always try to do your best to predict the rut, when it's going to happen, when activity's going to be at its peak. And,
yeah,
sometimes you're just a day or two off, a week or so off, and, you know, you try your best off of the information you have from years previous. This year
yeah,
it's hot, so it ends up further into the season. But it's a
yeah,
real bummer when it doesn't play out like years past.
yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it, like I said earlier, was just the amount of food that was out there, and they didn't have to condense. Because I noticed once that started not be a thing, like acorns were either ate or they were rotting or they were just snow covered where they weren't getting to them. They were coming to typical food sources, and they were coming at mass, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of what also leads me to think that bumper acorn crop is is part of the reason that happened. Um, is because they didn't have to go anywhere. Like your food here, like I don't need to go far. We don't need to converge on the hot food sources because everything's hot right now. So it's basically like you can't give up. You got to keep pushing, got to keep grinding. And I know I had some people like comment because I made a couple posts on social media, and a couple of people like, oh, you just got to keep grinding. Like, well, at first I was like, oh, you just got to stay off of social media. You see everybody and all this stuff. I'm like, listen, you're kind of missing the point of what I'm saying here. Like, it's like, I get it, but I'm not giving up. Like, it's just getting frustrated because, I'm not looking to harvest, but I'm also looking at like, I'm not seeing like stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is what's bothering me about this. Like, I'm not seeing anything. Um,
Well, I know I was one of the people who give you a little crap, just fun, little poke at the bear. With the cell cams and stuff, I definitely gave you a good poke on that one.
Yeah. It's all right. Like, and I expect stuff like that, and I get that, and it's the whole part of the experience thing and stuff, and that's just that was just the year, and
Yep.
I've had ruts that's been really great. I've had ruts that's been really slow. Last year's rut wasn't that great. I had opportunities. I never even drew my bow back on a decent buck last year. Had some really fleeting opportunities in the late season at a buck, but this year, like I said, it's once gun season, I really seriously, I think gun season on got better. like the hunting just got better from gun season on, which normally is not the case. It's usually the other way around.
Yeah.
Once gun season hit, hunting gets kind of miserable. But I just think the way the weather's set up, because we actually had good like late season weather this year. We had a good weather for gun season. Like it just things kind of added up to where when I see the numbers that we talked about earlier, I'm not surprised that firearm season kind of got ahead of archery season this year and took the lead on that. So I'm not surprised the way things just lined up this year at all.
Yep. And it'll be interesting to see what next year brings as far as the driving factors. With the good snow, you guys should have a good moisture content hanging around.
Yeah.
Um, and hopefully you guys get some weather and the oaks aren't stressed, which, even when they are stressed, that's a fantastic food source for the deer. So,
Right.
it's just always curious to see what next year brings.
Yeah. I don't, so the moisture content, thank you. We need the moisture. However, we don't need to go into season like we did the last part of the summer in that drought, because that's really what got the midges moving a lot, was because all that water started to dry up and leave all that mud as the ponds and stuff started to recede. I think that's where a lot of it was. So they did the total amount of rain that we got in the early part of the summer, and then it just shut off, and then everything that swelled then shrunk and left that breeding ground open for those midges and stuff. So, yes, moisture is great, but also we need it to continue on through. Not like it doesn't have to be like, well, let's maintain. We just need it to maintain, not
Just a
not
just a little consistency.
yeah, not exceed, but just maintain, so that we don't, hopefully we can avoid that from happening again. It's going to happen. I mean, it happens to small pockets every year. Every now and again you get a big outbreak like down there, and that one was pretty bad. It's not the first time we've seen outbreaks. Maybe one of the worst ones we've had, but not the first time we've seen it. So,
Yeah.
but we'll see what next season has in store for us.
Yeah, I'm worried about the one out here with, speaking of lack of moisture. We're getting some weather in the high country and some rain down here low. I think we started out talking about that a little bit, but if we don't start getting more up high, it's going to be a dismal year.
Yeah,
There's not going to be a whole lot of grass growth for the elk. I'm sure the deer will be okay, but hopefully those water sources that they're using can maintain. And if not, it might be a scary summer and, go back in, which we've been in a drought, but continue on the drought and with less snow than ever in the high country, fire season might be uh might be an interesting one.
yeah, yeah. Unfortunately. Well, I don't know. It's so hard. I mean, who knows? You guys might end up with a wet spring. Wet spring, maybe some a little bit more rain during. Who knows?
Yep.
Who knows? I mean, it is what it is. It it buffs. It'll all buff eventually.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, right? Oh, well, Sam, thanks for joining us, man, and getting us through the recap of the season and talking nerdy stuff with numbers and Miller stability factor and all that kind of stuff. So
Well, I'm glad someone can talk about it because not me. I wish I could. I maybe it's my attention span. I try to sit down and get into some of that stuff and then I see a squirrel and I'm
squirrel,
gone.
it's a squirrel. So I get it. Uh, well, man, anything you want to add before we close this thing out?
I know the last episode we were on, we brought up application season. I think by the time this one drops out, we'll be right into it, at least for Colorado. March 1st is day the application for big game opens. If you're going to be applying, you got to get your small game license too, so be aware of that. New thing, I just got my new regulation book and was flipping through it. The only major new thing, it's going to hit non-residents hard and make a lot of people stomp their feet. And I get it. Uh, the non-resident tags, there's no more over the counter. It's going fully draw for non-resident.
Yeah. So is that elk, deer, everything, or?
From what I understand, everything. I don't know if that means. I assume you can still do the add-on bear tag,
Mhm.
uh, but as far as that goes, everything, as far as I know, is full draw.
Yeah. which I hate to say this, I'm not surprised that's the direction they went. There was a lot of pressure on them to do that, and there's a lot of states in their area that was doing the same thing. So they were one of the very few that still had over the counter, and it was just a matter of time before that went away.
Well,
Okay.
I don't foresee too much detriment unless you've got a load of points built up and you've been waiting on
Mhm.
that trophy hunt. And if you want that trophy hunt, you're just gonna have to settle for buying points and maybe hopefully drawing a tag in another state that you've
Yeah.
got some points built up for. But if you don't have a lot of points, I wouldn't be too down in the dumps. There's a good, I'm not gonna promise you anything, but there's a high probability that those are gonna be 0 point draw units.
Yeah.
I don't know what the tag allocation is gonna look like in those units because the way I understand it, the residents are gonna still have the over the counter opportunity. So I
Right.
don't know what kind of number they're gonna cut out for the non-residents.
So I wonder how many people that's going to, so the people who have points, I wonder how many that's going to take out of the pool of putting in for some of those units because they don't want to lose their points. Can they go into like the secondary draw and not lose their points?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah. So with the secondary draw, it doesn't take any points from you. You don't gain any points, but you don't get any points
okay.
taken. That being said, we'll see what it looks like after the first year. I know with the area that you and I like to hunt, the area I live in, there tend to be a handful of leftovers that in that secondary draw that don't seem to
Mhm.
be an issue to grab.
Well, it's rough country.
It's
It's
not
tough.
forgiving.
It's not for
It's
me.
not quite the San Juans, but it's not forgiving.
The good old sand ones. Yes. We've been there before too. We've been there.
The harder
Oh,
it gets, we just like to make it hard. We just like to make it difficult.
there's a whole nother level of success that comes with challenges, and the more the challenge, the more I think the more gratifying the success is out of that. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, the fun thing with the San Juans is, you get a little cooler weather, a lot more rugged terrain, but here, depending on where you're at, you might be in the oak brush and in the cedars hunting elk, and it's still 75 plus degrees. So
mhm, yep,
that heat will wear on you just as quick as that cold. For
yep,
me, I'd rather be doing it in the cold, but that heat
yeah.
gets to me quick.
My biggest thing is water.
Mhm.
Is water availability because I suck down the water when I'm out there.
And you did. I'm like, man, he's not doing a good job of conserving that. We're gonna have to. Oh no, he's out of water. We are gonna have to go back to the truck real quick.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's I don't know if that's like an altitude thing or something coming from a lower altitude to higher.
Mm. It's a I'm dehydrated thing, and I need the water.
Yeah.
I might push it a little too far with myself on my water conservation. Once my lips start getting chapped, I know it's starting to become a real issue because not I'm a sweaty person. I'll admit it.
Right.
Not too much of my body dries out unless I'm in pretty dang near extreme dehydration.
Yeah. So, yep, I was definitely going through the water, but I don't know.
Hey,
It's like,
you need it, so there's no question about turning around and going back for it.
yeah, yeah, it's just too bad there wasn't anything a little bit more accessible to get water out of there. Even if there was,
Well, and the one that was solid mud coming down the hill. So what are you
yeah,
gonna do? Plug up
yep.
your pump, and then you still gotta go back to the truck for more water.
And you're going back to the truck anyways. So, yeah. Well, man, I think it was a good episode, man. I appreciate you jumping on here and stuff. So,
Oh, absolutely. I love going through the stats and facts on these season recaps. I'll try to be a little more prepared next time. But a lot of times you get going and you start to think of things you didn't think about prior, like, oh, what about these numbers? These numbers. I don't
yeah,
know. That's where I nerd out. I like math.
math.
Uh,
Well, then you would like
num
to. Then you would like that Miller stability factor. Then you should look into that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Between you and my one of my buddies at work, I could probably get all the resource I need and compile it for myself to review. So
Review, review, and realize you know what? All this is bullshit. Just to
you
go out
know
and
what?
start.
You know what? I bet it doesn't matter which 308 round I'm using. As long as it's accurate, it's going to kill something.
That's generally where most people end up at. So,
Yeah.
well, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to sit and join us for the last 2 hours as we recap the Ohio season and kind of started to give you the first look at the numbers given out by the Division of Wildlife for the 25-26 season. We know that your guys' time is very valuable, and we do not take that lightly that you took that time from your day to sit and listen to us talk. It would help us out tremendously if you would like and follow the show and leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you have listened to this on. And make sure you share it with your friends. Get the word out there. We'd highly appreciate that. And also, if you'd like to follow us on other platforms, check us out on TikTok at Country Fried Outdoors, or it's actually countryfried.outdoors, or Instagram at Country Fried Outdoors, and our YouTube channel at Country Fried Outdoor Productions. The podcast is going to air on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and what's the other one? Amazon Music, and also on YouTube, but you'll also get the video version on Spotify and YouTube. And with all that being said, ladies and gents, until our experiences cross paths again, may you have the courage to fail, but yet the humility to learn. And as always, we hope you stay safe out there, and God bless you. Thank you for listening to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. Before you go, don't forget to leave us a review and follow the show on the podcast platform of your choice. Are you hungry for more Country Fried Outdoors? Then follow us on Instagram at Country Fried Outdoors, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Country Fried Outdoor Productions.